Naveed, what about that pillow? So it's not too down. This is a brown pillow. You used to put this on. Maybe in the back. Maybe in the back. In the back.
Maybe just advise people if they don't have a handout, take a photo.
Yeah. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد سيد الأولين والآخرين وحبيب رب العالمين. I ask Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala to grant us all the sincere intentions for His sake alone. There is a handout, but I don't think there were enough. I printed 50. MashaAllah. So if you don't have a handout, then you can easily take a picture of it, inshallah. So we're going to be speaking about al-Maghrib all the way up to and slightly after al-Fajr. What are the good deeds that a person can do? What are some of the good deeds that a person can do? So again, let's make our intentions sincerely for the sake of Allah. Before al-Maghrib, by a short while, let's say you prayed al-Asr, right? Some scholars said that it's disliked for you to sleep. If you prayed al-Asr and al-Maghrib is not yet in, some scholars said it's disliked for you to sleep if it's without a need. If there is a need, then they didn't say that. Through experience, you will have noticed that if ever you sleep just before al-Maghrib, you wake up and you feel a little disoriented. There's something about this time, sleeping at this time. So the scholars, some of them said it's makruh, it's disliked to sleep at this time. And they said that if a person therefore sleeps without a need, it's sunnah to wake them up. So if you see somebody in your household who's asleep at al-Asr time, if it's without a need is something like if they're exhausted and they can't stay awake. So if you see somebody awake in your household, asleep in your household at this time, then it is sunnah to wake them up. Al-Bukhari narrated in his Sahih that the Messenger of Allah alayhi salatu wasalam said, if the sun sets, then one should bring their children indoors. And this is a habit of the Muslims. This is something the Prophet advised alayhi salatu wasalam. And it's something that a lot of people don't do nowadays. You'll be walking in the street going home, for example, or parking your car, and you'll see, you'll hear the voices of children running around out in the dark between the streets. This is not how it used to be. The Prophet ﷺ said that if the sun sets, then you should take your children inside. Bring them inside. And if you can, you should also go inside. Then after some time passes, then you go out. This is because the devils, the shayateen, they spread at this time in masses. And so that the harm doesn't reach you or your children. Now, for the children, it's more emphasized because the children, a lot of them are not able to recite at-tahsin. They're not, which we're going to mention also. They're not able to recite that. So don't let your children play outside. It's also mentioned that you close your doors, you close your windows for some time, let's say 20 minutes at the beginning of al-Maghrib. And then after that, you can open your windows, you can open your doors. Not that people usually do after al-Maghrib. But for the person who is older, if he is outside, then he recites what we're going to mention, inshallah. So, it was the habit of our Shaykh Abdullah al-Harari, radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, that as soon as he would notice or be told that al-Maghrib has started, the sun has set, al-Maghrib has started, he would start to recite. So Ibn Majah narrated, and this should be the first piece of text on the sheet that some of you have. Ibn Majah narrated that the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam said, ما من عبد يقول في صباح كل يوم ومساء كل ليلة, that if a Muslim, he says every evening, meaning as soon as the sun sets. So depending when the sun sets, is it 4 p.m., is it 7 p.m., whenever the sun sets. If a person says whenever the sun sets, or whenever true dawn appears, so whenever al-Fajr occurs, as soon as it occurs, or as soon as the sun sets, whoever says بسم الله الذي لا يضر مع اسمه شيء في الأرض ولا في السماء وهو السميع العليم. Whoever says this 3 times, then insha'Allah nothing will harm him until al-Fajr. So our Shaykh rahimahullah, as soon as he would notice, or as soon as he would hear that al-Maghrib is in, they'd say, Maulana dakhal al-Maghrib. Al-Maghrib is in, the sun has set. He would start, Bismillahi alladhi la yadurru ma'a ismihi shay'un fil ardi wala fis sama' wa huwa as-sami'ul alim. He would recite this 3 times for protection. So those of you who have a sheet, and those of you who have access to it, if you recite after me, Bismillahi alladhi لا يضر مع اسمه شيء في الأرض ولا في السماء. ولا في السماء وهو السميع العليم. So a person says this 3 times. I remember once I was in Lebanon, and somebody in front of me asked another person, a woman, she asked someone passing by. She was somebody who was learning with the students of Sheikh Abdullah. It was close to the time of al-Maghrib, and it didn't cross my mind. So someone was passing by, so she asked them, "Dakhal al-Maghrib? Is it al-Maghrib?" So they said yes. When they said yes, she started, Bismillahi alladhi la yadurru ma'a ismihi shay'un fil ardi wa la fis sama'i wa huwa as-sami'ul 'alim. And she said it 3 times. And then if I'm not mistaken, she taught that person, she said, as soon as al-Maghrib comes in, you say this. As soon as al-Maghrib occurs. If a person doesn't say it, they're not sinful. Of course they're not sinful. This is not an obligation. But it's something the Messenger of Allah taught, alayhi salatu wassalam. And everything that he taught us to say, it contains a benefit and it contains blessings. So in order for the merit, the special merit that the Prophet mentioned, alayhi salatu wassalam, to occur, that a person would be protected, لا يضره شيء, nothing insha'Allah will harm him. For a person to attain that, it needs to be in the Arabic language. It needs to be in the Arabic language. Yeah, a person can translate the meaning to understand the meaning, but to acquire that benefit, they need to say it in the Arabic language. And they need to say it properly. This is why they should learn this with a teacher, meaning that they, or somebody who has learned it with somebody who knows how to say it. They say, listen to me saying it. And then they'll say, Bismillah. If they make a mistake, they'll stop them and say, no, you need to say that letter properly. You're not articulating it properly. So it needs to be said properly. And this is 3 times. So as soon as al-Maghrib occurs. Why is that? Because the devils, they wait for this opportunity of al-Maghrib as soon as the sun sets. They wait for this opportunity. Sometimes people have been bewitched. Sometimes sorcery has been done upon them. Sometimes there is a devil on the street or in one's house who may want to harm a person. When is that window of opportunity for them? At al-Maghrib, as soon as the sun sets. So as soon as the sun sets, you protect yourself. Sometimes someone might say, well, I've never read that before. And everything else you're going to mention, I've never read it. I've never recited it. The harm isn't always apparent. The harm comes in terms of waswas, whispers. The harm comes in terms of anxiety. The harm comes in terms of erratic behavior. The harm comes in terms of developing a weak heart. All these different things. The person might say, I'm fine. I've never seen a jinn. It's never slapped me. It's never nothing like that. But the harm isn't always apparent. Mostly it's not apparent. Just like when someone, they're suffering from an illness. It's not a major illness, but they've been suffering from it for so long that they don't even know anything's wrong. To them, it's normal. And then later on, they go to the doctors or they speak to a friend and they find out that it's not supposed to be like that. They're not supposed to be feeling that. They're not supposed to, have these bags under their eyes, or their skin from here is not supposed to be this color. This is how it is. So a person might say, well, I've never seen any harm. Well, the harm isn't always apparent. And there's no doubt that the Prophet ﷺ wouldn't have taught us this if there was no benefit in it. Of course, he taught us it because there is a benefit. Likewise, our Shaykh radiyallahu anhu would say, Hasbi Allahu la ilaha illa huwa. Alayhi tawakkaltu wa huwa rabbul arshil azim. This is because, and this is at al-Maghrib again, This is because the Prophet ﷺ said, Man qala fi kulli yawmin hina yusbih. Whoever says every day, whenever al-Fajr occurs. Whoever says this whenever al-Fajr occurs. Wa hina yumsi, and whenever al-Maghrib occurs. Whoever says what I just recited, كفاه الله ما أهمه من أمر الدنيا والآخرة. Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala will relieve this person from whatever he may suffer in this life and the next. If he says this 7 times. So far, as soon as al-Maghrib occurs, a person says, if they don't have access to the sheet I've given up, get a copy, take a picture. Hasbi Allahu, or rather, بسم الله الذي لا يضر مع اسمه شيء في الأرض ولا في السماء وهو السميع العليم. It's not hard. It's not difficult. To want safety for oneself, it's not difficult. So that is 3 times. Al-Maghrib occurs. How long does that take? That takes about 12 seconds to say. 4 seconds each maybe it takes. And then Hasbi Allahu la ilaha illa huwa عليه توكلت وهو رب العرش العظيم. Then a person says this. And this is actually part of at-tahsin. So, ta, ha, sad, ya, nun. At-tahsin refers to fortifying oneself, like building a wall around oneself, shielding oneself. What do you shield yourself from? The devils. Magic, likewise, what some people call the evil eye, al-ain, nazar, in other words. So you put up a shield by reciting these statements. You put up a shield. You fortify yourself. So at-tahsin is something that many people do. Most people do not do. Most people don't do it. Most Muslims don't do it. The Prophet taught us, alayhi salatu wasalam. So there need to be people who request this knowledge and then they implement it. And that is us. That is the Muslims. So then a person would pray al-Maghrib. So you see the sun set and they haven't even prayed al-Maghrib yet. They can do this even before they pray al-Maghrib. Okay? So the sun sets, they say these statements 3 times and 7 times. And then now even they can slightly, just a little bit, they can delay al-Maghrib slightly, by a minute or 2, and say other things. But let's start with the Maghrib prayer. So let's say a person starts to pray al-Maghrib. It is best to pray al-Maghrib in jama'ah, to pray it in congregation, because the reward is multiplied. And it's best for a person to wear a hat. It's best for a person to use the siwak. It's easy, the toothstick. Keep it in your pocket, you get it out. Before you say Allahu Akbar, you use it on your teeth. Move it to the right, move it to the left. Intend for the sake of Allah, and the reward of your prayer is multiplied 70 times. So it's multiplied 24 or 27 times by praying with even one more person. That's jama'ah. And then on top of that, you use the siwak. Men and women, you use the siwak. Going to the matter of the siwak, you should have many siwaks in your house. The Prophet ﷺ used to put one next to where he would sleep, so that as soon as he wakes up, كَانَ يَشُوسُ فَاهُ بِالسِّوَاكِ, he would use the siwak as soon as he wakes up. So you might put one under your pillow. You might put 2 under your pillow. The Prophet ﷺ, he used to use the siwak, for example, before eating and then after eating. And it's not like what some Western people might say. They might say, that's disgusting. How is it that you eat and then after that you use this toothstick? It's not disgusting. The Muslims have been doing this for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. The Prophet ﷺ said, Inna Allaha nadhifun yuhibbun nadhafa. Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala has perfect attributes. And Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala gave a high status to cleanliness. to cleanliness. The Prophet ﷺ praised the siwak again and again, such that the scholars said that the guardian of the child who becomes 7 lunar years and is of understanding, the guardian of the child has to teach the child, this is the siwak, the Muslims use this. To that extent, this is a siwak, a miswak. The Muslims use this. It has many benefits. It has health benefits and benefits that aren't apparent. Like the scholars mentioned that if a person uses the siwak, it will, this use, continuous use, will enable a person to say the shahadatain when a person is about to die. Most people become tongue-tied. But the siwak, it helps them in that. The siwak has many other benefits as well. Many other benefits. Some mention about 39 other benefits. So if you don't have a siwak, you're falling short. If you don't have a siwak, you're falling short. If you only have one siwak, then, and if you lose it, then when you pray, you're losing out on reward. When you wake up, if you don't have a siwak under your pillow or next to you, you're going to lose out. The Prophet ﷺ, whenever he used to enter a building, whenever he used to enter a house, the first thing he would do, he would say, Assalamu alaikum, then he would use his siwak. So it's sunnah. Sunnah to use the siwak as soon as you enter your home, for example, or you enter a building. Do that and intend, I'm following the Messenger of Allah, alayhi salatu wasalam. He would use the siwak easy, to the left, to the right, then the bottom, the right and the left. For example, you might just clean the top part, the bottom part. What does it take? It takes less than 10 seconds. And you gain a lot of reward for intending to follow the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. So you pray al-Maghrib. You pray al-Maghrib in the correct way. Then Al-Hafiz al-Tirmidhi related in his Sunan, in a book, and other than him, that the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam said, Man qala fi dubur al-Fajr, whoever says after the Fajr prayer and the Maghrib prayer. So this, here it's mentioned Fajr, but also it counts for the Maghrib prayer. He said, whoever says after the Fajr or the Maghrib prayer, وَهُوَ ثَانٍ رِجْلَيْهِ قَبْلَ أَنْ يَتَكَلَّمْ. So 2 conditions. You've just prayed the Maghrib prayer. Literally, you said, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. 2 conditions. You don't move. So you don't stand up, or you don't stretch your leg out to change position. So you were sitting like you do for the prayer, and then you decided to change position. You crossed your legs. You didn't do that. You didn't extend your legs out. No, you remained in the position that you were in when you were praying. That's the first condition. You're going to see the great reward if you apply this. And why shouldn't we? This is sunnah to do. Second condition is don't talk. So before moving, changing position, moving either of your legs, and before speaking, the Prophet is mentioning alayhi salatu wassalam, if you say La ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lah, and here wahdahu la sharika lah, this is mad silah. Mad silah means that you extend it 2 counts. Not La ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lah. No. If a person wants that merit, what's going to be mentioned, they should say wahdahu la sharika lah. Not wahdahu la sharika lah. And yuhyi wa yumit. Not la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lahu lahul mulku wa lahul hamdu yuhyi wa yumit. Doesn't count. Yuhyi wa yumit. So he said, whoever says this before moving their leg or legs, and before talking, whoever says La ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lahu lahul mulku wa lahul hamdu yuhyi wa yumitu wa huwa ala kulli shay'in qadir 10 times. It takes maybe 2 minutes. 2 minutes at al-Maghrib before moving. If a person feels that, well, I can't really sit for that long, or I can't sit in that position for that long, what can you do? You can. No, I'm not leaving you just like that. What can you do? I'm telling you, you can. If you're before you finish the prayer, because the condition is you've got to stay in the position that you were in when you finish the prayer. So before you finish the prayer, change position. Sit in a way that you're comfortable. In the prayer, what you can do is, when you reach the end, before saying the salam, you can cross your legs. You can do that in the prayer. So if that's how you're comfortable, say like that. If you had your foot folded, like you had the bottom part of your toes touching the ground, then what you can do is release your foot before saying the salam, so you're more comfortable, so you don't get pins and needles, so it doesn't go numb, right? Then after that, say the salam, and then say La ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lah, lahul mulku wa lahul hamdu yuhyi wa yumitu wa huwa ala kulli shay'in qadir 10 times. The Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam said, whoever does that, kutiba lahu ashru hasanat. In some narrations, or some mention mumayyizat, that there are 10 special rewards written for this person. Special rewards. There are 10 special rewards written for a person. وَمُحْيَ عَنْهُ عَشْرُ سَيِّئَاتٍ. And 10 sins are erased. 10 sins. In a narration, 10 major sins. 10 major sins that a person had committed. They are erased. وَرُفِعَ لَهُ عَشْرُ دَرَجَاتٍ. He is elevated by 10 ranks. A Muslim would love to be elevated by, a fifth of a rank. A fifth of a rank, to have a higher status, closer to piety, to being accepted by Allah. So a person is raised 10 ranks. وَكَانَ يَوْمَهُ ذَلِكَ فِي حِرْزٍ مِّن كُلِّ مَكْرُوهٍ. And that day, meaning from al-Maghrib all the way to al-Fajr, for this person, he would be protected within a hirz. A hirz is like something that coats you, that surrounds you and protects you. So a person would be protected for the rest of the night, from al-Maghrib to al-Fajr. وَحُرِسَ مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ. And he would be protected from most of the devils. This is something the Prophet ﷺ mentioned. وَحُرِسَ مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ. From most of the devils, he would be protected. So our Shaykh said that this hadith narrated by, do you remember who was narrated by? At-Tirmidhi. Who was it narrated by? At-Tirmidhi. It's not going to change, is it? Okay. So Shaykh Abdullah radiyallahu anhu said that this is among the sahih, the authentic hadiths, where something very light is done, the act is very light, 10 times, 2 minutes. You want to go slow, it takes 3 minutes. But its reward is great, and its protection is great. So whoever says this after the Maghrib prayer, with 2 conditions. What are the 2 conditions? Without saying anything. So for example, it's not that you say, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, and then you turn around and say, who was talking in the prayer? Not like that. There are other ways you can get the message across, isn't it? You can, okay? Or they say the salam, and then like they didn't extend their foot out and then take a breather. No, they didn't talk and they didn't move their foot after al-Maghrib and after the Fajr prayer. Even if you are the imam, if you are leading the prayer, then most imams don't do this nowadays. Many imams nowadays actually don't know how to be the imam in the best way, in the complete way. Even if you're the imam, and in some masjids, if the imam prays al-Maghrib and he says the salam, and then for the other prayers, for al-Dhuhr, for al-Asr, for al-Isha, what does the imam do? He's supposed to sit at a right angle to the people, 90 degrees. So he's facing that way and the people would be on his right. After he was leading, he's moved and he's turned this way. That's sunnah. But in the Maghrib prayer and the Fajr prayer, a person remains sitting. Nowadays, if someone does that nowadays, the people in the masajid will be like, what's wrong with him? We want to say the dua and we want a chip. That's the case for a lot of masjids nowadays because they don't know about this sunnah. And it's in Sunan al-Tirmidhi. So whoever does this 10 times at al-Maghrib and 10 times at al-Fajr, after the Fajr prayer, without talking, without extending his leg, in a narration, the Prophet said, كَتَبَ اللَّهُ لَهُ عَشْرَ حَسَنَاتٍ مُوجِبَاتٍ, that Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala grants this person 10 great rewards that necessitate. What do they necessitate? Paradise. How do they necessitate paradise? Because a person's good deeds, every day if they do this, a person's good deeds increase and a person's major sins, they decrease. He said, so glad tidings be to the person that actually applies this hadith, because he would have gained a lot of reward in a short space of time. So Shaykh Abdullah was asked, لو زاد الشخص على العشر مرات بهذا الذكر. What if a person says it more than 10 times? What if they just, they get lost? They're saying it, لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له له الملك وله الحمد يحيي ويميت وهو على كل شيء قدير. They get lost, they're on their phone, they're doing something else and they forgot how many they've done, right? So what if they do more than 10? They say, you know what, I'll just add about 5 or 6 just to be safe. Shaykh Abdullah said, السر لا يحصل إلا بهذا العدد. He said that the merit of those things being forgiven, of those major sins, and it doesn't occur. You don't get the merit if you don't do the exact number that the Prophet mentioned. Alayhi salatu wasalam. Yeah, are you rewarded? Yeah, of course you're rewarded because you're performing a dhikr. But numbers, they have a special merit. I mean, why would the Prophet say, alayhi salatu wasalam, do it 10 times? Do it 10 times and you'll get this. If you could do it 11 times and get it as well. So numbers matter, okay? So 10 times. He said, لا يزيد ولا ينقص. A person doesn't add to it and a person doesn't take away from it. So don't do 9, don't do 10. فإن أنقص أو زاد لا يحصل على السر. السر meaning the secret, the merit that is mentioned, a person wouldn't get it. Then he was asked, what if a person prayed al-Fajr after the sun rose? Meaning what? They didn't wake up for Fajr. Did they still get the merit? He said that what is probable is that this is specific to that time. You pray al-Fajr, for example, in its time, then you say it, then you get the merit. Otherwise, if you sleep through al-Fajr, you've lost out. Like some of them said, تُقْسَمُ الْغَنَائِمْ وَأَنْتَ نَائِمْ. The spoils of war are being distributed and you were asleep. People were getting all the good and you were asleep. You didn't get anything. Why? Because you were asleep. تُقْسَمُ الْغَنَائِمْ يَا صَاحِي وَأَنْتَ نَائِمْ. He was asked, what if a person recites this dhikr after al-Maghrib, but then they didn't recite it after al-Fajr because they were asleep, for example. So they prayed al-Maghrib, usually people are awake. They prayed al-Maghrib and then when it came to al-Fajr, they woke up after Fajr. So they didn't say it. Then would they be forgiven of their sins or what happens? He said, what a person had committed of major sins before al-Maghrib, so during al-Dhuhr, during al-Asr, right? What a person had committed of major sins before al-Maghrib, then 10 of them would be erased because they said it at Maghrib. Yeah, so the previous sins, they would be deleted. As for the major sins, if a person committed major sins between al-Maghrib and al-Fajr, And because they didn't recite it at al-Fajr, because they didn't wake up, for example, then these sins would remain. The Shaykh did say that the Prophet said that this dhikr would protect a person from, by the will of Allah, would protect a person from every makruh, meaning everything that they dislike. Anything that stresses you, anything that makes you anxious, anything that, and. So there was a woman, she once came to Shaykh Abdullah and she asked him, she said that my husband travels a lot. He travels away and he teaches religious knowledge. And I'm at home alone. He goes for 15 days sometimes. What should I do? I feel really anxious at home, really anxious, alone. So Shaykh Abdullah said, make sure you say this. He said to her, there is a dua, there is a dhikr that you do after al-Maghrib and after al-Fajr. Say it. And he told her to say this. In some schools, what you can do is, if you're traveling, you can perform al-Maghrib and al-Isha together. You can shorten and combine. So some of the students of Shaykh Abdullah asked him, they said, well, if we delay al-Maghrib and don't pray in its time and pray during al-Isha, then do we miss out? What do we do? He said, pray al-Maghrib in its time and do this dhikr. And then pray al-Isha in its time, shorten it, and then do this, pray in its time, basically. So that you don't miss out on this dhikr. So those of you who have a copy of the sheet that was given out, make sure now that after al-Maghrib and after al-Fajr you do it. There are things that occur at al-Fajr that don't occur at other times. So if a person isn't waking up at al-Fajr, they are at great loss. Great loss. This is one of those matters. Imagine you wake up at al-Fajr and you recite this after al-Fajr for the rest of the day, insha'Allah. You would be saved from everything that you dislike. You'd be protected from it. A lot of people complain, I've had a bad day. Did you wake up for Fajr? No. I just about had breakfast, but I didn't wake up for Fajr. What do you want me to do? Did you recite this? Did you recite that? Did you recite that? The Prophet told us, alayhi salatu wassalam, it's not like it's hidden. He told us, and you've heard about it, but you still don't do it. Who is that on? It's on you. So anybody who doesn't have a sheet, also go to someone who has a sheet, inshallah. During the break, I just realized I'm supposed to have a break. During the break now, inshallah, and take a picture, inshallah. We'll stop here for now. Let's say La ilaha illallah. We'll continue after the short break. La ilaha illallah. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallim. Naveed, remind me. I asked yesterday. Inshallah, we'll continue in 3 minutes. 3 minutes. 3 minutes, inshallah. Yeah, you can stretch your legs now, yeah. But not after Maghrib. Yeah, not after Maghrib.
It's been that long I've seen you. I feel like I'm not seeing a celebrity. I've seen you more on TikTok and YouTube than I do see you in the flesh.
Really?
Yeah, around.
Oh, because I don't give the Friday class.
You don't get the Friday class. And I don't do Jummah here. I think you do Jummah here.
All right, yeah, I do. I give the class after Jummah.
I watch your TikToks and your YouTube. That's how I keep up with you.
Oh, I haven't been doing that for a while now. We've become
Well,
really...
I must be watching the old ones.
Yeah,
Every now
yeah.
and again it pops up.
Yeah, mashallah. Where's Nasir?
I think he's got unexpected guests arrived
Okay.
from Glasgow, so he's coming to entertain them this week.
محمد بإمكانك أن تأتيني بماء لو سمحت. There was a
Oh.
شربت.
Assalamu alaikum with you. All right.
Oh, no, السلام ما شاء الله. How are you doing?
Alhamdulillah, man.
Are you surprised to see me?
Huh?
Surprised to see me?
No, never surprised.
Where were you sitting?
Sorry?
Where were you sitting?
I was sitting there.
All right, no, I didn't see you. I'm just kind of focused.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
You're actually all right?
Yeah, I'm all right, no, but just trying to see how I'm going to finish because I always forget about the break in the middle.
Yeah.
We used to have a break and I forget. Oh, you got a sheet?
Yeah, I got a few.
Oh, you bagged
Yeah,
it?
I'm the first one.
Good man, good man, good man.
Yeah,
MashaAllah.
next drink.
How's your, how are you feeling?
You're all right. I feel a lot better, alhamdulillah. Just a little bit stinging and dry.
Okay.
It's to be like that for a couple of months.
Is it blurry or?
Sorry?
Is it blurry or are you
So,
2020
My
now?
left eye vision is like really poor, but right eye, alhamdulillah, it's all right. So, said over time it should inshallah come back again.
Fine. No bank details were given out. If they were, just sort code.
Yeah.
Okay, mashallah. Shmaila here.
Sorry?
Shmaila here.
Yeah, smiling for the smiles on the back.
Or maybe that was.
Everyone knows about my eyes now.
Oh, really? No, I don't think that. They're not bothered.
All right.
It's been 3 minutes. I'm going to start.
Yeah.
I got some water. Let me see.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد سيد الأولين والآخرين وحبيب رب العالمين. We ask Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala to grant us all the sincere intentions. So, al-Maghrib came in. You also came in. Your children also came indoors. After that, you started to recite, or you were in the street, and you started to recite Bismillahilladhi la yadurru ma'asmihi shay'un fil ardi wa la fis sama'i wa huwa as-sami'ul alim. If you don't know it yet, then you start, in a few weeks, if you keep saying it, you'll start to memorize words, and then give it a month and so on, and you have it in the back, inshallah. Then you pray al-Maghrib and you perform al-Dhikr, okay? The one that we mentioned. La ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lah. That might be number 3 or the third one down on the sheet. I'm not sure. Then what do you do after every obligatory prayer? You recite Ayatul Kursi. The Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam said, Man qara'a ayatul kursi fi duburi kulli salatin maktubah. Whoever recites Ayatul Kursi after every obligatory prayer, لم يمنعه من دخول الجنة إلا أن يموت. Literally, it means that nothing will stop him from entering paradise except death. Meaning, only death stands between him and paradise. Shaykh Abdullah, rahimahullah, said this hadith means if a person does this if they recite Ayatul Kursi after al-Fajr, the Fajr prayer, after al-Dhuhr, after al-Asr, al-Maghrib, al-Isha, like this, continually, every day, they recite Ayatul Kursi. How long does it take to recite Ayatul Kursi? Sorry? 2 minutes, maybe even a minute and a half, yeah? Whoever does this, Shaykh Abdullah said, then as soon as they die, one of the special merits that they attain is that their soul soars to paradise and then it comes back. It soars to paradise and then it comes back. Because the Prophet said, alayhi salatu wassalam, nothing stands in the way of a person, nothing stands between a person and paradise except death. So, but the person's soul, remember, after a person dies, it's taken, the pious Muslim soul is taken to Illiyin. Then after that, it's brought down. The Muslim soul is then held by an angel and it's made to watch the shrouding, the washing of the body and so on. So how is it that the soul goes to paradise? So the Shaykh said that the soul goes to paradise, it enters paradise, and then it comes back down. It comes back down so that it can go through the different stages. So من قرأ آية الكرسي في دبر كل صلاة مكتوبة لم يمنعه من دخول الجنة إلا أن يموت. Narrated by al-Tabarani and others. Because the Prophet said, alayhi salatu wassalam, that you should recite Ayatul Kursi after every obligatory prayer, that includes al-Maghrib and al-Fajr. So what you can do is, let's say you finished al-Maghrib and you haven't moved and you haven't spoken, or al-Fajr, you haven't moved and you haven't spoken, you can recite Ayatul Kursi and then do that other dhikr 10 times. And you would still attain the merit. So you can recite Ayatul Kursi and then you recite the other dhikr, or you recite the other dhikr 10 times that we mentioned just now. And then you can recite Ayatul Kursi and you would still come under this hadith, inshaAllah. You will still come under this hadith and attain the merits. At-Tirmidhi narrated, so you heard that, right? At-Tirmidhi narrated, probably won't ask you now, but mashallah, at least you know now, that the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam said to one of the companions, قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ. Recite قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ وَالْمُعَوِّذَتَيْنِ. Al-Mu'awwidha, it's the one that begins with what? أعوذ. قُلْ أعوذ بِرَبِّ الْفَلَقِ. And then قُلْ أعوذ بِرَبِّ النَّاسِ. So these are two surahs that we, at the beginning of them, we say, I seek the protection of Allah from such and such. So these two, Al-Falaq and Al-Nas, are called Al-Mu'awwidhatain. So the Prophet said to one of the companions, alayhi salatu wassalam, Qul, say or recite, Qul huwa Allahu ahad, meaning all the surah. Surah Al-Ikhlas. Wal Mu'awwidhatain. So Qul a'udhu bi rabbil falaq and Qul a'udhu bi rabbin nas. So three, Al-Ikhlas, Al-Falaq, and Nas. Hina tumsi, when the sun sets. Wa tusbih, and when not the sun rises, but when dawn appears, when Fajr starts. Yeah? And he said, Thalatha marrat, do it 3 times. He said, Takfika min kulli shay. Alayhi salatu wassalam. He said that this will protect you from everything. By the will of Allah, tabaraka wa ta'ala. He said, Takfika. Al-Ikhlas, wal-Falaq, wal-Nas. Takfika, it literally will be enough for you. Min kulli shay, from everything. But you've got to recite it properly. Yatlunahu haqqa tilawati. The Quran, it has certain rights, if you will. You have to recite it properly. You can't just make an intention, I want to recite the Quran, and then say it wrong. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't happen. It's like putting the right key in the right shaped lock, the right key into the complementary lock. It doesn't open otherwise. It's the same for reciting these statements. And then one of the companions, he also narrated, Uqbat ibn Amir radiyallahu anhu. He said, Amarani Rasulullahi sallallahu alayhi wasallam. The Prophet ordered me, alayhi salatu wasallam, meaning that it's recommended here. he ordered me, أمرني رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أن أقرأ بالمعوذات في دبر كل صلاة. He said the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام recommended or urged me to recite قل هو الله أحد, all of the surah, قل أعوذ برب الفلق, all of the surah, and قل أعوذ برب الناس after every prayer. After every prayer. A person who suffers from waswas, whisperings, then what they're advised to do is in every prayer, if they pray by themselves, in every prayer they recite قل أعوذ برب الفلق in the first rak'ah after al-Fatiha, and قل أعوذ برب الناس in the second rak'ah after al-Fatiha. So in the prayer, and when they finish the prayer, they recite them also. Every day. For all 5 prayers. So up to here now, what have we done? So far, we've recited Bismillah alladhi la yadurru ma'a ismihi shay'un fil ardi wa la fis sama'i wa huwa as-sami'ul alim. We've recited Hasbi Allah also. We've recited, we prayed al-Maghrib. We've brought our children in. We have recited that dhikr 10 times, right? Also by now we should have recited Ayatul Kursi and then recited Qul huwa Allahu ahad 3 times. Qul a'udhu bi rabbil falaq 3 times. Qul a'udhu bi rabbin nas 3 times. And this is said to weaken the devil, the qareen, that is with every single person. There is a demon with every single person. It's thought that the males, so whether Muslim or non-Muslim, it's thought that there is it's known, the Prophet told it, it's known, that there is a demon with every person. It's thought that with the males there is a male shaitan, and with the females there is a female shaitanah. And this devil, it resides usually in the chest of a person. And it has like a snout, which through it injects whispers into a person's heart. So usually you get whispers from where? I mean, firstly, you have these are your own active thoughts. They are not whispers. Okay? Your active thoughts. Should I have a tuna sandwich today or should I just have an apple? These are your own thoughts. Okay? Then after that, you have your nafs, your soul, your nafs, which is your soul. This leans towards relaxation, leans towards being lazy, leans towards luxury. This also whispers to you sometimes. It just injects things. When we say whispers, it doesn't mean that it whispers in your ear. Otherwise, that would be strange. If you heard it, you look around, there's nobody there. So it doesn't, it's not like that. It whispers to you in your chest. And you can differentiate because you know it wasn't you. You know that wasn't you actively thinking. It's easy. Or it's this devil that injects these thoughts into a person's mind, into a person's heart, sorry. So it's a whispering that the ears do not hear, but a person knows in their heart. Things that you would never think of. You're a Muslim. You would never think of those things. And suddenly they come. Where have they come from? It's either the devil or it's the soul, i.e. the nafs. By reciting this tahseen, by fortifying ourselves, by reciting what we reviewed together, you weaken this qareen. You weaken this devil. This devil, we'll come to it when we talk about sleep very soon. We'll speak more about this devil soon. So then what happens? You have Salatul Isha. You pray the Isha prayer. You pray the sunnahs for al-Maghrib. You pray the sunnahs for al-Isha. Then you pray the Isha prayer. After this, what should we do? After this, you should recite Suratul Mulk. Tabaraka alladhi biyadihi al-mulk. The Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam said, Inna suratan fil Qur'ani ثلاثون آية. There is a surah in the Quran that is 30 ayahs. It's like 2 pages. 30 ayahs. شفعت لرجل حتى غفر له. That it intercedes for a person. It asks Allah for forgiveness. It intercedes for a person until they are forgiven. وهي تبارك الذي بيده الملك. It is this surah, Surah Tabarak, Surah Mulk. The Prophet also said, alayhi salatu wassalam, هي المانعة. This surah is the preventer. It's the preventer. Al-Mani'ah. Al-Munjiyah. It's like the savior, like the savior. It saves. From what? From the punishment of the grave. From the punishment of the grave. Imagine someone said, one of the scholars mentioned that was his opinion. Imagine someone said that. This was the opinion of a scholar. We'd say, yeah, but you know what? If it was just his opinion, it can't harm me. Let me go with it. But the Prophet told us. He said you'll be saved from the punishment of the grave. And that's something really, really, really big. So when you recite it, you can recite it between al-Maghrib, so the sun has set, between al-Maghrib and al-Fajr. So before dawn. This is the window for this. You recite it at this time every single day. So that's why I'm saying you recite it after al-Maghrib, because you pray al-Maghrib every day. Okay? After al-Maghrib, recite Surah al-Mulk. Or after al-Isha, recite Surah al-Mulk. Every single day, so that you are saved from the punishment of the grave. Person might say, oh, but I've never learned it. Okay. I mean, the only Muslim alive, there are other Muslims alive who have learned it. Learn it from them. The Quran has not yet been lifted. Yeah, the Day of Judgment is close, but it's not that close. The Quran has not yet been lifted. The Quran is between us. And there are still men that memorize certain parts of the Quran. Learn it with them. Learn it. It's not enough just to say what some people do. Some people say, oh, I played it on YouTube today. That is good. That is good. That's not enough. Just pressing play on YouTube doesn't mean that you get this merit of reciting it. You have to recite it. You might have heard it a lot. You might have played it a lot. And that's good, because now you're used to the ayahs. You probably can even continue some of the ayahs or start some of the ayahs. And you know the words here and there. It's easy. You pull out the Quran and you study it 20 minutes a day or 10 minutes a day. One ayah. Give it about a week and you memorize it. You know how I memorized Surah al-Mulk? I didn't actually open the Quran and memorize it. When we were in the dormitories, after the brothers prayed al-Isha, they would pray al-Isha, and then after al-Isha, they would recite Surah Tabarak in one voice, about 50 or 60 of them. So I would sit there. I don't know it. So I would sit there, and I sat there for a day, sat there for 2 days, 3 days. It took me some time. I sat there for about 6 or 7 days, and then because I was learning the Arabic language also, it might have been a little easier. I was recognizing some of the words in the surah, so I recognized them, and I kept saying them. When they'd say them, I'd say them. Then like that, over a period of 3 weeks, I'd memorized the surah. Just like that, just by listening. The Quran is easy. Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala revealed in the Quran, وَلَقَدْ يَسَّرْنَا الْقُرْآنَ لِلذِّكْرِ فَهَلْ مِن مُدَّكِرٍ. Allah made the Quran easy, very easy. But also a person forgets it easily. So you hear about something now. I'll tell you something. If ever you're awake at like 2 a.m. and it's quiet, everybody's asleep other than you, right? Let's say you're laying in bed in the dark. Think about the grave. Actually think about the grave. Think about the darkness in the grave. Think about how tight it might be in the grave. Think about the insects in the grave. It's really scary. It's really scary. It doesn't make you want to do anything. It makes you want to do, nothing. It doesn't make you want to get up in the morning. It really affects you. And think about that. The Prophet said, you can protect yourself from the punishment of the grave. Surah al-Mulk. If you don't know it, ask someone here, do you know Surah al-Mulk? Can I organize a time with you? 20 minutes every Tuesday, every Wednesday. Learn Surah al-Mulk. Memorize it. If not memorize it, learn how to recite it. And you might recite it until the day you die like this. You might take it from someone trustworthy, learn it with them, and then you recite it by looking at it. You might never memorize it. It's not a condition to memorize it. I'm sorry if I gave you that idea. It's not a condition to memorize it. You read it. You just read it every day between al-Maghrib and al-Fajr. It would be sad if then a year from now, those of us who don't do that still don't do that. It would be very, very sad. And who is at loss? The one that doesn't read it. We might say, some of us might say, oh yeah, I heard that hadith. I heard this hadith 10 years ago. Barakallahu feek. Very good. Do you do it though? Yeah, I'm just, busy life, my children. It takes about 3-4 minutes. No, actually, no, it takes 7 minutes. It takes about 7 minutes. 6 if you recite fast. Okay. Sitta? I recite it when I walk home. You probably walk really fast, huh? Double speed. Okay, mashallah. Takes about 6 minutes. It takes. Surah al-Mulk. تبارك الذي بيده الملك وهو على كل شيء قدير. Surah al-Waqi'ah. Prices are going up now. The electricity is going to go through the roof, right? The gas also. The Prophet ﷺ said, "Man qara'a surat al-waqi'ati fi kulli laylatin lam tusibhu faqatun abada." Whoever recites Surah al-Waqi'ah. How long does Surah al-Waqi'ah take? Maybe the same, huh? I think 6-7 minutes. Depends. It's not very long. The Prophet ﷺ said in a hadith that is slightly weak, but there's no problem in doing what it says, right? It says, whoever, you'll understand now why I mentioned gas and electricity. He said, ﷺ, whoever recites Surah al-Waqi'ah every night, he will never suffer poverty. He will never suffer need. So this is a great means for a rizq, sustenance. Reciting Surah al-Waqi'ah between al-Maghrib and al-Fajr. So again, if a person is anxious about a rizq, about sustenance, about the obligatory provisions they need to provide, then recite Surah al-Waqi'ah. Some scholars said that you also recite it at al-Asr. If you do it every night, it'll become very easy. It'll take 5 minutes, 6 minutes, 7 minutes to recite. It's like 2 or 3 pages, depending on which mushaf you're reciting from. So you have from al-Maghrib to al-Fajr. So you see there are specific times for these things. Specific times. Some people who I know, they recite it at al-Asr and between al-Maghrib and al-Fajr. Our Shaykh said between al-Maghrib and al-Fajr. So you see these people, mashallah, they go by what the Prophet said, alayhi salatu wasalam, and they heard that possibly you also recite it at al-Asr. They said, labbaik wa sa'daik. They said, yes, of course, why not? We'll recite it at al-Asr too. And then, mashallah, they have a lot of rizq, a lot of halal rizq. Sustenance would come to a person in ways that a person would not have thought that they would come. Okay, so now you're getting ready for bed. And remember, when you prayed al-Isha, you used the siwak. And by the way, inshallah, I won't mention that right now. It's important for a person to have a siwak, miswak. So get your children used to that. Okay, you can use each other's miswak because the moisture that is on the edge is not considered disgusting. It's not considered disgusting. So, and who will you use that with? Your family, your husband, wife, your children. So, when a person goes to bed, what should they do? They should, if they have a door on their bedroom, they should close the door and say Bismillah. It prevents the devils from entering. Then the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, Hudhayfa, a companion, mentioned that كان رسول الله عليه الصلاة والسلام إذا أراد أن يرقد, if he wanted to sleep, if ever the Prophet wanted to sleep, كان يضع يده اليمنى, he would put his right hand تحت خده, under his right cheek, here, like this. So he'd be sleeping on which side? Right side. ثم يقول اللهم قني عذابك, Allahumma, oh Allah, save me from your torture, from the torture that you will afflict upon people. Allahumma qini, you know, like we say, qu anfusakum, protect yourselves. Qini azabak, oh Allah, protect me from the azab, the torture that you will inflict. Yawma tab'athu ibadak, on the day in which you will resurrect your slaves. Narrated by At-Tirmidhi. And Abu Dawood narrated, كان يقوله ثلاث مرات, he would say it 3 times. He would put his right palm under his right cheek, sleep on his right side, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and say, Allahumma qini azabaka yawma tab'athu ibadak. Allahumma qini azabaka yawma tab'athu ibadak. Allahumma qini azabak yawma tab'athu ibadak. Is that one written on the sheet? Okay. Then he, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, I've missed things. There are things like you should sleep on while you have wudu. You should perform a dhikr. You're more likely to see a nice dream. If ever the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam woke up in the night, so he was asleep and he'd wake up, like we do sometimes. We might hear a noise and we wake up, or just your stomach grumbles and you wake up. Something happens. كان رسول الله عليه الصلاة والسلام إذا تعار من الليل, if he woke up suddenly in the night, he would say, لا إله إلا الله الواحد القهار رب السماوات والأرض وما بينهما العزيز الغفار. He would say that, عليه الصلاة والسلام. So you also, if you wake up suddenly, memorize it, because you might not even open your eyes. So I was going to say that maybe blow this one up and put it next to your bed. If ever you wake up, just with the phone, have a look, right, till you memorize it. All right, but usually then you can actually do it. You can become an expert, inshallah. When you memorize it, you don't even have to open your eyes. You wake up and you say, Allahumma, or rather you say, La ilaha illallah al-wahid al-qahhar, Rabbu samawati wal-ardi wa ma baynahum al-aziz al-ghaffar. Not off again. When you're gone, Shaykh Abdullah said a person might be forgiven of major sins for this. You know why? Because a person has to push themselves to say it. Imagine you're asleep and you wake up and you're tired, you're warm, your voice is rough, it's hoarse. You say, La ilaha illallah wahid al-qahhar. You push yourself to say it. That's why you might even be forgiven of major sins. I'm going to finish very soon. The Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, he said, or rather he taught one of the companions who would feel very anxious in the night. Sometimes some of us, we might become very anxious in the day or in the night. Just when it gets dark, or when we're at home and it's late and it's quiet, we might become really anxious and nervous and feel like we can't breathe, or just feel like that. So the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, he said that such a person should say, and this is the next statement that's written there, should say, أعوذ بكلمات الله التامة. Tamma needs to be 6 counts. For a person to attain the merit here, for the person to attain the merit here of calming down and calming their children down so that they're not afraid or anxious, and they need to say 6 counts. Not أعوذ بكلمات الله التامة من غضبه. No, 6 counts. It needs to be 6. If you have a pen, just put 6 next to that. So أعوذ بكلمات الله التامة. 6 counts. من غضبه وعقابه ومن شر عباده ومن همزات الشياطين وأن يحضرون. This is so a person feels relaxed. This is so a person can also fall asleep if a person is suffering from the inability to fall asleep at night easily. The Prophet ﷺ also taught this to people who are very anxious, like I said, in the night. So this can be taught to such a person. Insha'Allah ta'ala. But it has to be with a good intention, of course. Right. Shaykh Abdullah would say, I'm just going to flick through some of these now because there's not enough time. Shaykh Abdullah was a scholar. He knew many things that he didn't actually teach, but his students who lived with him learned many things from him. He would say, for example, if you wake up, then he would say to the students, wipe the sleep, literally, from your face. امسح النوم عن وجهك. And he would tell them to do this, wipe their face and say Bismillah. And they said that this would have an effect, even a little bit of an effect. It would take some of the tiredness away, that initial tiredness, that grogginess when you get out of bed, it would take that away. So he would say, Imsah an wajhika an-nawm, or an-nawm an wajhik. So a person would just do this, Bismillah, like that. So you fell asleep, and then you should wake up at the time of sahar. People have problems with their children. Sometimes children don't listen. Sometimes children run away. Sometimes children, they do not want to obey. Sometimes they harm their parents. Sometimes the parents harm the children. Sometimes a person has an enemy. Sometimes a person is bullied, even an older person. There are all these problems that occur. They're having financial issues. People have stolen from them, and. Is there a time, a special time that Allah created every single night where you can make dua? Is it the case that an angel descends and says, "Oh people, whoever amongst you wants something, then ask, Allah will give"? Is there such a time? Or, "Oh people, if you're wanting forgiveness, repent, Allah will forgive"? Is there such a time every single night? Yes, there is. When is it? It's about 30 minutes before al-Fajr. About 30 minutes before al-Fajr. You wake up 30 minutes before dawn and you make dua. You pray 2 rak'ahs and you make dua, you make dua, you make dua. Whoever continues, waking up at this time, worshipping Allah, praying 2 nafil rak'ahs, 2 optional rak'ahs. How do you do that? You make wudu and you say, I'm praying for the sake of Allah, Allahu Akbar. And you pray 2 rak'ahs. You might recite Qul huwa Allahu ahad after al-Fatiha in the first, and Qul a'udhu bi rabbin nas in the second after al-Fatiha. And that's it, and you've done it. Right? And that's a type of tahajjud, a type of the night prayer. The night prayer, it illuminates the grave. How many people do it? Why was it made at this time? Why wasn't this window opened up after Dhuhr? Everyone's awake at Dhuhr. How are people going to be rewarded that so much extra for doing something that everybody could do? It's the things that are more challenging. Pulling away from the warm bed, making wudu, going down where it's cold, going upstairs or downstairs or wherever you pray, and praying, fighting the eyes, or fighting the sleep away from the eyes. And you make dua at this time. At this time, your heart opens up. Your heart actually opens up. Your thoughts are clear. You're thinking about the hereafter. You're thinking about paradise. Thinking, I'm going to do the good deeds. Then you wake up. Everyone becomes, one might say, alive again. you wake up and the hustle and bustle of life and you forget everything until the same time the next day, in the night. Try it if you haven't tried. And if you are a mother or a father and you want your child to be pious, then let them taste the night prayer. Wake them up for the night prayer. Yes, it's going to be hard the first, second, third, the 30th time it's going to be hard for them, but then they'll get used to it. And then they will be indebted to you. They will, if you die before them, they will make dua at your grave that you granted them this opportunity. You showed them this door. You taught them this skill of praying the night prayer. Most people don't pray the night prayer. Most people don't pray at tahajjud. Most people don't, after praying al-Isha, wake up before al-Fajr. Pray, sleep a little bit, and then wake up for Fajr again. Most people don't do that. But this is that time where our Shaykh said that هذا وقت الأسرار. This is a time of great merit. Special things occur, special blessings exist at this time. And your dua is answered at this time because that angel descends. So whenever, and look what the Prophet said, alayhi salatu wasalam. He said, if you want it to be the case that Allah answers your dua when you are in a desperate situation, then regularly make dua to Allah when you're in a situation of comfort, when you're in ease. Most people don't make dua when they're in a situation of ease. One thing that I did miss, and we'll finish with this, did have a bit more, but we'll finish with this, that after you pray the obligatory prayers, make dua. This is one of those times where your dua is answered. And actually focus on your dua, focus on what you're saying. You can make dua in English. You can make dua in your own language. You can ask Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala, but focus and have a sincere intention. Don't just, alhamdulillah, and off you go. Some people don't even do that. Some people, they'll pray, they'll say, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, and then they'll do this. Or just like this. It's on the beard sometimes, just like this. And they're gone. The Prophet didn't fall short, alayhi salatu wasalam, in teaching us the times at which these blessings occur. I'll give you one more example. The muezzin does the adhan. Okay? There are about 5 minutes until the iqamah happens. That time between the adhan and the iqamah, the dua is answered at that time. You don't have to, like if you travel for a good reason, your dua is answered while you travel, right? But you don't have to travel every day. Just between the adhan and the iqamah, you can make dua. After the obligatory prayers, you can make dua. You can make dua in the time of sahar. Get used to waking up at that time. You might say, oh, but you know what kind of life we live? 9 to 5, and the children. And okay, are you the only person on earth that live like that? The companions, they fought wars. Did you ever fight in a war? Some companions fought in 20 wars. Some companions, you couldn't find a piece of skin on their body that wasn't bruised. So every single person, now people can't say, well, we didn't know. No, you do know now. And we all know. So let us act, inshallah ta'ala. There are many other merits. With regards to what a person can do at al-Maghrib, al-Isha, and al-Fajr. I did say that was the last thing. Give me 30 more seconds because I don't want you to lose out on this. If a person prays al-Fajr in Jama'ah, right? And remember, it's sunnah to pray al-Fajr when it's getting light outside. Okay? You pray al-Fajr in al-Jama'ah and then you stay sitting where you were. Okay? After you say the dhikr 10 times, you can move your foot. But you stay in that place and you perform a dhikr until when? Until the sun rises to a certain degree. So 20 minutes after sunrise. You continue making a dhikr for 20 minutes. You get the reward that resembles, the Prophet said this, alayhi salatu wassalam, you get a reward that resembles a nafal, hajj, and umrah. Think about that. You could do that every day. Getting the reward that is similar to an optional hajj and an optional umrah. Just sitting and saying, La ilaha illallah, La ilaha illallah, La ilaha illallah. I've only seen, I remember only one person, when I was in the university, only one person used to do that. And I used to think, what is he doing? Like, people have got up and people are going about their business, and he's still sitting there. And he sit there for 20 minutes until later. Well, later on you learn. Later on I learned it's because he knows this hadith. I didn't know the hadith at the time. So a person gets a reward that is similar to an optional umrah. What's an umrah? Tawaf and then sa'i. And every day. So you have the opportunity of sahar, waking up at that time before Fajr, every single day. Why prevent yourself from the blessings? And this reward every single day. We ask Allah to grant us the ability to do the good deeds. Let's say La ilaha illallah and as-salah ala nabi. La ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallim. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallim. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallim. There is this last statement on the sheet, I guess, another time, inshallah. Barakallah.